Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's potluck time. This is the part of the show where we all get to talk about our favorite stories of the day. And Heather Hansen, you're head chef.
All right. My story is about Mike Rogers, the head of the NSA, was in a speech, I think yesterday, talking about the risks of cyber attack that we have and the fact that our infrastructure isn't prepared for it, the fact that we have such a huge enemy with Iran on this particular issue. And there was a New York Times piece this weekend on that saying that the cost of nuclear war is so high that we're really engaging in cyber war and we're not prepared for the fight. We're not talking about our lack of preparation. We're focused on the nuclear issue, which I know is a big focus, but I think that we need to start opening it up, especially our younger people, and realizing that this is going to be the war of the future.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Die Hard 4.
I could not agree more. I think that we don't come close to doing what we need to do. And we can't seem to get the cooperation between the corporations and the government. Now criticize Obama. Now, this is where you criticize him because he has not done enough to protect us from cyber
Look at
warfare.
you, being objective, issue to issue.
I just
Not
want
just
smart
being the blind
debate.
ideologue that we all thought you were.
Smart debate, folks.
Right, all right,
No,
Katie.
I mean, he really, all seriousness, he really hasn't done enough. This is a critical issue,
Katie,
and it's not being handled.
You're teed up.
Okay, well, they have a program where they're trying to reach out to hackers to train them to be, counterterrorism hackers. But one of the requirements for this program was that you can never have committed a crime. Well, hacking is a crime. So to get the best hackers, we should probably adjust that program. And it's just all very simple things that we could be doing.
Well,
Doesn't this mean though we have to start really looking into actually exporting talent from North Korea, because they could hack better than anybody. That Geek Squad showed Amy Pascal and Sony.
Wasn't this a TV series?
No, but
Die Hard 4.
But to Katie's point, I mean, if we're willing to do business with terrorists in order to protect ourselves from other terrorists, then we should be willing to do business with hackers in order to protect ourselves from hackers. And it is the warfare of the future, and we need to be thinking that way, as opposed to it's old-fashioned thinking. It's nuclear war versus cyber war. It's old-fashioned thinking.
This is your topic. What's the worst case scenario?
Worst case scenario is our banks go down, our intellectual property is stolen. They're saying that a lot of our jet fighter plans have been stolen by the Chinese. I mean, this is a lot more dangerous than I think the Sony hack. I mean, not to discount that.
That was dangerous. That took down an entire movie.
Took down an entire movie.
CEO.
Actually,
CEO of
it did the
Sony?
movie a lot of good, I think.
True.
Probably.
I saw the movie. Nobody would have gone.
What about War Games and Matthew Broderick and a young Ali? Was that Ali Sheedy?
Yeah, what was
Right?
the line?
Well, I don't know what the line
There was
was.
one line he
you
said,
don't
do you
know
want
the
to play a
line?
Do
game?
you want to play a game?
Something like
and
that.
he was actually able to, through his
Yeah.
computer at
Right,
home,
start a
through
war.
dial-up,
Start
mind
a
you,
war.
nearly start wars.
Now, this is the
nuclear
real
weapons.
deal.
Yeah.
And what they can do, it's absolutely true. They could take down the banking system, but banks aren't stupid. They've got backups.
Yeah,
but
but not
imagine
good
if they
enough.
took down the power grid.
The power
Right.
grid.
Power grid.
And all of these other things.
Okay, well, everybody sleep well tonight. Rick Unger, you're up next if you still have an appetite.
Whatever happened to Loretta Lynch? You remember her? She
Loretta
was
Lynch,
nominated
she's a great
for
singer.
Great coal miner's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Nominated to be the next attorney general. She had her hearings weeks ago. Since that time, Ash Carter's not only had his hearing, but has been approved and is in office. Whatever happened to Loretta Lynch? Well, what happened to her was exactly what I predicted would happen to her, that they were not going to let her get away with defending the president
Well, she
on the
can't.
immigration issue. And yet, you're not going to turn around and bite the hand that fed you. So now you've got Ted Cruz.
It was more than the immigration issue.
Well, what else do you think it is?
IRS. She didn't give a good answer to the IRS.
Well, you don't
scandal.
like her answer.
Drones. She didn't give an answer.
Yeah.
If she had given good, thoughtful, thought-out answers, I would have less of a
So
problem
what
with
do you
it.
think should happen to her?
Well, right now she's given 200 pages of written questions
Yep.
she was supposed to provide, and she hasn't
200
given
pages?
something like that.
How
of
many
written
questions are in 200
questions
pages?
I
to-
can't imagine.
Because if you at least have just five
This-
on, you're answering
this
1,000 questions.
This is Ted Cruz being Ted Cruz, but I'll just say this to you and then we'll pass it along. Just remember, if you don't approve anybody, you have Eric Holder for the rest of Obama's term.
Right,
That's
but
all I'm
I
gonna
think
say.
they're willing to do that. I mean, if you read Ted Cruz's op-ed
did.
in Politico today, I think he's willing to stick with Holder rather than get somebody in who's willing to say from the start, I support everything that President Obama does. I think that these written question responses, I mean, she had a chance after the preliminary injunction on amnesty was entered to change her answer a little bit to support that, and she didn't. I think they have some real questions, and they're valid questions.
They apparently had a lot of questions.
And
Questions about her
very,
answers.
very, very few are valid in terms of her qualification. But
She has phenomenal qualifications, and I like the fact that she has so much experience with terrorism and terrorism trials here in
and what
Brooklyn.
is the
Absolutely.
job of the Senate? to do. The job of the Senate is to explore qualifications to make a determination if that person is fit for office. Not agree politically, to see if they're fit for office. So if you can say that she has the qualifications, I can't understand why you're having a problem with the nomination.
To disagree with Supreme Court decisions in her answers, which is
What
what
if
she
she
did with
disagrees?
regard to the GPS placement on somebody's car, with regard to the IRS issue.
She disagrees.
But that made it make her less
So
than
you
fit.
don't think that she's fit?
She's qualified. I'm not so sure she's fit.
And I have a feeling we'll have more time to talk about this tomorrow because we're not going to get a confirmation anytime soon. When we come back, we will have more political potluck for you, including my own dish. It's time for Yay and Nay after that as well, critically acclaimed. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. Welcome back to Daily Wrap, everybody. We're in the middle of our potluck. We're discussing our favorite stories of the day. Katie Kiefer, welcome to your first potluck. And first, show off your book because I think the cover is tremendous. Let me be clear. Barack Obama's War on Millennials and One Woman's Case for Hope. Almost
And
like the audacity
letter
of
to
hope.
Obama's on the back.
Well, look at you. Good for you. So everybody,
Dear Barack.
please go out and buy that book. And sorry to distract you. What are
Thank
we
you.
talking about today?
Well, my potluck is the issue of rape on campus, and there's an epidemic where between 2008 and 2012, we've seen an increase of about 49%. And so to address that issue, what I would recommend is allowing young women to carry concealed on campus. And so even the New York Times actually came out recently, a couple of weeks ago, saying that that would be a good idea. 10 states are right now considering the idea of legislation that would allow this. 41 states ban it now. But I definitely think that it would be wise because only 7% of young men on college campuses ever will commit sexual assault, but the majority of those, over 60%, have committed over 6 rapes. So we're talking about
Can you repeat that again? Because numbers sometimes don't play
Okay.
well on television.
7% of college men have ever committed sexual assault. And of that 7%, 63% have committed at least 6 rapes.
Is
or
the
sexual
7%
assaults.
attempted sexual assault, or is it actual
Actual.
convicted of sexual assault or accused? That's where I think, and I don't expect you to know that answer. I think just sometimes
I
it gets
believe
a
it's
little
that they actually committed it.
Okay,
So,
it's still a high number.
well, my point is just that it's not the average person who is doing it if they're committing
There's another
6.
93% still that's right, I understand.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you in theory, but my issue with it is that the majority of these rapes involve alcohol. And so then I get concerned about people carrying
With
when
guns and
they're
alcohol.
drunk, and because we know that alcohol is one of the major factors in sexual assault on campus. And it's I think it's the root of the problem. Addressing the symptom, I get it, and I'm all for the Second Amendment, but I just worry about the combination of those two things.
Right. People raise that point quite often, and it's a valid point. But a common myth is that most of these rapes occurred on dates, and it's actually, you're far more likely to have a classmate, not a friend or a boyfriend, who commits this sort of violence against you, and it will happen, in a library or in a mutual study group. So it is someone you know, and oftentimes it's at a frat party or whatnot. And so my thought is, if people knew that even one man at that party, or one woman at the party, or one woman at the library is carrying concealed, it would be a deterrent.
If it's concealed, how are they going to know?
It's a deterrent effect
The
because
fact
he
that they
doesn't
might
know
have it.
that
All
her
I
best
know
friend.
is a lot of guys, if these laws go through, guys are going to think long and hard before breaking a date.
Yeah, that's true, and you've done that on many occasions. And Katie, great
me.
topic. Thanks so much. Sorry to put you on the spot there. It's just it's obviously been a very hot topic, particularly with UVA and the whole Rolling Stone story. I hope that didn't hurt the momentum, at least, of legitimate cases. And we'll hear how that investigation turned out. Speaking of college, are fans court storming too much? Let's look at last night. Kansas State upsets Kansas. This game was in Manhattan, not New York, but the Manhattan of Kansas. And this was considered a major upset because what you had was an unranked Kansas State team beating 8th ranked Kansas. And then you see the melee and you look at that, you say, no big deal. This happens in college all the time. Here's where my issue is. Kansas is number 8 in the country. They're not one, they're not two. It's a conference win at home against a rival. It's not like Kansas was the national champions and, oh my God, I can't believe we beat them. And K-State wasn't exactly like the biggest underdog either. I think the spread was 3 or something like that. Yet you see all these folks running onto the court, and let me tell you what the Kansas coach said afterwards, Bill Self. He said, I wasn't nervous for me. There were several students that hit our players. I'm not saying like with a fist, but I'm saying when you storm the court, you run in, you bump everybody, stump on that. This has got to stop. And the Southeast Conference. Well, the Southeast Conference, for instance, not a small conference by any capacity, and has #1 ranked Kentucky in it. If you beat them, you should be able to storm a court.
Right.
All right.
But
Let's say you're LSU and you beat Kentucky, you can't storm that court because the
Actually, very
SEC
easy.
says you're not allowed to do it.
Well, that's
Very,
easy.
very easy. If it's Ohio State, it's okay. If it's anybody else, it's not okay.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think you're
Am
going to
I-
have a shifting
simple.
line.
But you're
depending
a
on-
millennium, right?
That
You're
wouldn't
part of the whole
happen in
scene.
Minnesota. They don't get in any kind of hockey fights or anything like that.
Too well
No,
mannered.
no.
Too
We
well
can't storm the
mannered,
court in
yeah.
hockey. The boards are
Everybody
slide.
too high. But Rick, at one point, but back when you were in school, you used to be able to rush a football field and tear down the goalpost, and they banned that.
Well, that's because when I was in school, the goalposts were really low. That's what 100 years ago, you know?
Right. The leather
Very
helmet
different. They had
era.
leather helmets. It was a whole other game.
Do you think
Fascinating.
they should just outlaw it altogether? Say that you just can't storm the court, period, end of story?
No, I
Or if
think-
you beat Kentucky, you can.
There should be a law. Unless it's the #1 team in the country, you are not allowed to storm the court. You make it a national law. The president should have an executive order and just pass that damn thing.
Debate it.
Anyway, coming up next after the break, it's Yay or Nay time. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV.